David, thank you so much for joining me on the Adaptive Men podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, man. I'm great. We were just talking before the recording started. My good friend Traver Boehm, the founder of the Uncivilized movement, came out of a 49-day dark retreat this morning, and so just get to hear his voice this morning and find a little bit of comfort in that. You don't realize how much you miss somebody until they're, off the grid and off the planet, so to speak. It was an interesting 7 weeks of like, it's like he's dead, but I know he's coming back and managing all of his affairs. And so it was nice to have him back in the land of the living, so to speak, for after this long period away. But yeah, so I'm doing pretty great this morning, man. Doing pretty great.
Just for context, that's Trevor Boehm. He's the CEO, the founder of Uncivilized, and just recently went into what the first time was 30 to 28 days, 30 days, and this one was even longer.
Yeah, 28 days in like a 60 square foot giant. Essentially, you can the space he was in before in Guatemala in 2016 looked like a giant poop emoji, and so this time he's in a much nicer facility in Tuscany, with a nice bed and some space to walk around and that kind of stuff. But yeah, 49 days isolation, complete darkness. Trevor, if you hear this, welcome back to the world, my friend.
Oh, so interesting thinking about this, and that that's kind of, I wouldn't say self-inflicted torture. It's more, it was welcomed. It was walked into intentionally, because those kind of things, was it complete black darkness with a tape recorder just so he can get his thoughts on paper, but then not have to turn a light on to write something down?
Not even no tape recorder. He has a journal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, isolation and darkness. So he had a system that he developed during this first dark retreat where he had a journal and he would write something down and then he would tear the edge of the page so that he knew that he'd already written on that page and not scribble all over his stuff repeatedly. They come and deliver two vegan meals a day. And for a man who loves steak as much as he does, that was a considerable drop in his caloric intake and his preferred meals of choice. But yeah, so it's like double-sided door, through the wall. They put Tupperware in with food in the morning. They ring a bell. After they close the door from their side, he opens it up, takes it out and eats in the dark, showers, all the bodily functions in the dark, and in complete isolation. The woman who runs their dark retreat center comes and sits next to the door once a week and just checks in and makes sure he's still relatively sane and healthy in there. But other than that, it's just him and his thoughts, or it was just him and his thoughts for 7 weeks straight.
It's so funny because just the other day I was talking to a buddy of mine about my own journey to men's work and all this stuff. You're learning more and more about how much you really just, the way I phrase it is you really can't argue with your inner caveman. There are just certain things that you just need. You can't really negotiate with. We were talking the other day about this and how I just feel there's certain things as a person, man or woman, that you really can't argue with to a certain degree. That it's my personal rule of thumb now is all right, get a good night's sleep, drink some water, eat the food that works well for you, exercise, make sure you socialize, limit doom scrolling, and then you're allowed to think. Because anything prior to that is just you're just gambling with the darker parts of yourself that are just, they're in a bad mood, you're dehydrated, you're frustrated, I had a couple days ago, I think it was Monday this week, it was 2 days ago, that I just had a really shit day. I was just feeling gloomy and doomy, and I tried meditating and thinking maybe there's something darker here coming up. And then later in the evening, I had a Zoom call, and 10 minutes before the Zoom call, I got really excited I was going to talk to somebody. And it just dawned on me, I've literally talked to nobody all day. No wonder I'm feeling like shit. Because as soon as I started talking, I just instantly felt better. But it's funny thinking that Trevor basically did almost the complete fucking opposite of everything.
They completely voluntarily, not even just voluntarily, but
voluntarily. Yeah, it's a huge.
But he paid a lot of money to be able to go do this too. That's the other what the hell kind of thing. It's not only am I going to be isolated alone, eat vegan food for 7 weeks, but I'm going to pay a significant amount of money to travel around the world and to the retreat center to take care of me for 7 weeks. So it's even more of an interesting predicament to find yourself in.
Yeah. Big difference though when you're doing it voluntarily. You're cutting yourself off from sunlight, you're cutting yourself off from people and talking. like the rest of that, I don't know, like you're not really exercising. Maybe he was doing push-ups and squats when he was in there once in a while just to kill some time. But
Yeah, and the door's unlocked. It's not like they put a deadbolt on the from the other side and you just have to wait it out. It's
interesting.
like at any moment you could walk out and be free of the experience. We talked about that a lot before he left. I was like, what if you get to like day 35 and you're like, well, I got it. Like I got what I came for. And he's like, I'm not leaving. I'm staying the
Mm.
whole time because if I leave at 35, I won't know what could have happened at 46 or 47 that I might have needed. And I was like, man, that is dedication on a whole different level. Like I've was in the military and law enforcement and ran marathons and CrossFit and all the things that are hard. Um, but the idea of like one doorknob twist away to back to the world, and nobody stopping me at any moment when it gets hard is like, holy crap, that's a whole different level of discipline that I don't know if I have. I don't know if I even want to have, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I guess it depends on like life circumstances and all that fun stuff. But most guys, especially nowadays, are they could probably benefit from it this to some degree. But it's also a lot of the problems becomes that most of their conditioning is like isolation and whatnot is somewhat involuntary. So
Mm.
I'm just curious to touch on that. What was with the Uncivilized Nation? Like, how did you get involved with it, and what started it all?
That's a fantastic question. So, my journey to men's work came
Mm-hmm.
from like many men, like a breakup and a divorce.
Mm.
Um, it was a, it was not something that I saw myself ever getting involved in. I had the typical like, oh, those are just dudes sitting in the woods, naked in a drum circle, chanting and crying, right? Like prior to getting involved in men's work myself. Um, but like I mentioned, like I was in the military, I was in the Marine Corps, I went overseas to Afghanistan. Typical young enlisted Marine, story. My ex-wife had an affair while I was gone with my best friend. Spent all my
Mm.
deployment money. Got pregnant while I was, after got back, all that kind of stuff. And at 21 years old when I got back from Afghanistan, like I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the capability of the emotional intelligence or even the language to figure out like what what the hell just happened to my life. Like
Mm.
it was like I went away for a while and somebody tossed a hand grenade into the room of my life and I walked, staggered out at the end of it all like, well, hell, what now? And so I did what any young 21-year-old Marine does. I was like, well, we don't need to deal with that. That happened. It is what it is. I'm just
Out of
gonna
sight,
go
out of
back.
mind.
Yeah, let's move back to the barracks. Like, let's start drinking and partying with the boys again, and having a good time. And so I just pushed it down deep inside, never to be seen or heard from again.
Mm.
And I left the military, got into law enforcement after a couple of years in 911 as a transition. Um, my some other things happened with my ex along the way. We didn't really have a lot of contact, but she ended up dating another one of my friends from a neighboring agency after her and my ex best friend split up. Who was also this guy was also a Marine veteran too, and so um, after years of traumatic incidents and stuffing everything down, it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And Traver had been on this podcast called The Squad Room that he started with a guy who's a commander in the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office now. But it was all just about first responder wellness and well-being. And um, it was in that transitory period for when Traver was leaving the fitness world and going on his Year to Live project and all that kind of stuff. And after, I talked to my wife, my current wife, about it, and I was like, man, this guy, he just has this message, and I feel like he's talking to me every time he opens his mouth. And so after a couple months of all the things, kind of bubbling back to the surface with my ex, my current wife was like, hey man, like I think it's time for you to call that Traver guy and just see what happens. And so I reached out to the guy who ran the Squad Room podcast, Garrett Tesla, a good friend of mine now, and Garrett introduced me to Traver, and we worked together for probably about 6 months or so. And he really peeled back the layers of what I had experienced, what I had been suppressing for so long, and kind of where I needed to go, and help me heal and grow through that process of men's coaching. And um, through that process, we became really good friends.
Mhm.
And I kind of realized that my calling was not to continue in law enforcement long term, At that point, I was about 8.5 years into a 20 plus year career. And I decided it was time for me to try something different. And, I stayed for another few years. I went back to school for psychology, um, specifically to get into coaching, and spent a lot of time developing myself and doing my own work. And, um, but the nation really came about because, like you mentioned before, like so many men on this planet are isolated and they feel like they're
Mm.
carrying everything all by themselves, and they have to go through it alone, because if you don't go through it alone, right, like you're a pussy, or you're weak, or you're a shitbag, or
Hmm.
whatever insert adjective here. Um, and I felt like that too. And Traver felt like that at certain points in his life. But there were men that came alongside us in some of the hardest parts of our life. And we were like, man, we need to build something,
Hmm.
because there are so many men that are out there that are struggling, that are alone, that are isolated, that can't put words to what they're experiencing, and they
Yeah.
can't figure out how to be, how to be witnessed, and how to share in a safe way, and work through what they're working through. And so we decided to create the online platform at first, and then we were like, hey, this online thing's going great. Like, let's figure out how we bring men's work, to men all over the world. And so now we've got, you know, a for profit that hosts the retreats and the online group and all that kind of stuff, and courses and coaching and all that. But we launched a nonprofit at the end of last year that we're still kind of building out behind the scenes, but that's where all of our free public men's groups are ran through, which is Project Uncivilized now. Um, with the goal of removing and reducing barriers to entry for men's work, and building men's community and service all around the globe. So that's kind of our current iteration, and our hopes for the future, all wrapped up into a couple minute story there.
That's a good story. Absolutely. Yeah, it took me the longest time, and it's so funny talking to other people about how much your past really comes to haunt you if you really neglect it for long enough. Like you mentioned there, so like things bubbling up and whatnot, and not understand. I think that this is maybe just like a mistake that men make, that we're very logical and like singular. I don't say singularly focused, but cause and effect oriented, I guess is a good way to
Yeah.
say it. So when we'll look at a situation that's happening, it's very easy to assume like, well, something in a situation I'm just not understanding is right now, when in reality it could be something that happened to you like 15, 20 years ago. It's kind of like flashing a sign because your brain thinks it sees something similar to what it saw 20 years ago in this moment right now. And it's difficult to get across to guys that like there's something back there that is affecting you now, and it's going to keep echoing until you address it.
Yeah, that's that's for sure. All the things, we talk about in men's work, talk about the shadow, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
all the parts of us, or all the experiences that we want to push away and not address, and all of those things are what, um, you know pulling the levers and steering the ship, so to speak. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it's all there all the time. And the ability to, like, I think a lot of guys, you go back to like the logic piece that you were talking about. A lot of guys are like, well, I figured it out, right? Like I heard about it. I read a book. I heard a podcast. I went to two therapy appointments, and I'm fixed, right?
Fixed.
I'm fixed. Like, everything's great. My life is going to be beautiful, and sunshine and roses and Lambos. And my bank account's going to skyrocket, because I started to talk about Man Club. But really, it's this unearthing, working in the coaching space. I'm sure you see this too. It's like, yeah, you unearthed it, you understand it logically, but like, now what? What do you do with it? How do you integrate it? And that's the piece that I think so many men miss, is like, yeah, I can understand why this is happening and why I made the decision, because it's programmed into my DNA or into my nervous system at this point. But it's like, okay, well, you saw it happen, you let the reaction happen in the same way, but you didn't change the behavior pattern or the thought pattern around it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
all you did was figure it out, and then you shamed yourself for having these experiences, uh, and shut down in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, you talked about Man Club for a minute, but you didn't really like get in the ring with it, um, and go to battle, so to speak. Because
Yeah,
we're logical creatures. We love to just
yeah.
identify a problem and fix it, right? Like, it's not
Well,
about the
that's
nail.
depressing. Yeah, that's a present bonding is like crack for men. It's just like, can I solve a problem? It's hard. It's or I think I'm solving a problem elsewhere when really I'm just solving the same problem repeatedly to make myself feel good to avoid this other problem I don't know how to solve. I see that shit
Oh
all the
yeah,
time.
recovering nice
Yeah.
guy here. I do that too.
Oh, same shit. Same shit. Yeah. Catching myself. Yeah, with the nice guy stuff. Yeah. You mentioned something in there. There was somebody I talked to recently about this, and it was a guy I was working with, and he was like, "Oh, I think I understand, why I do this, that, or other thing." And I said, "Cool. Just because you understand it doesn't mean you have like that doesn't mean the emotional aspect is gone. Like
Yeah,
just because you read a book or you say like, oh, I can understand myself now. Like, yeah, there's still work to do. Just because you
yeah.
understand your feelings doesn't mean doesn't exempt you from the fact that you still have to feel it.
There it is.
Yeah,
There it is. That's
yeah,
the thing that we're most afraid of doing as men, because we feel like we have to do it alone. We have to feel like we don't, like, that there's a right way to feel, that there's a right way to
mm-hmm.
engage with it. And if we don't do it right, two things are going to happen. Like, my life's going to go terribly wrong because I did it, quote unquote, wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or everybody's going to leave me because I had this experience as a human being, not just
Mm-hmm.
as a man, but as a human being. And it's like, well, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe, freeze, starve, and die. But what we don't remember is this wonderful technological age that we live in. Pros and cons are obviously out there, but how else would you and I be having this conversation from across the country around topics that we both, uh, you know, agree on and love and feel that are important to the world without it? And so there's this opportunity to always be able to find somebody. It's not like it used to be when we're in a 180 person tribe and like that's your whole life forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's definitely interesting to watch men, especially over long periods of time, like guys that have been with us in the nation for 5-6 years, of like who they were, and like they've gone through hard times and they come out okay, and they're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, like I can do this.
Yeah,
Oh shit,
yeah,
here's another hard time. I'm going to use what I learned in this hard time to go through this other hard time and come out okay. And I'm going to do it with the support of hundreds of other men, whether it's in my real offline life or it's through the Uncivilized Nation or it's through their men's group or wherever. But it's like, man, we're supposed to be in community. Like, we're supposed to be in relationship. And so many of us have been browbeaten for decades of like, just do it alone. You got this. Here's a pat on the butt. Good job out there. Pat on the shoulder. Uh, Keep doing it by yourself. You got it, man.
yeah. There's a line I like to tell people is like accountability is a feature of human beings, not a bug. A
Mm.
lot of people have this perspective of men in particular, like I shouldn't need help. I shouldn't, I should be able to just do this. I just finished reading a book recently. It's called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and she's like a leading
Oh, that's a
psychologist.
good one. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
phenomenal
yeah.
book.
And it was cool hearing this talking about how to create a culture, how to build your own grit using your environment. And the two ways is either just do it yourself, which is harder, or surround yourself with people who are actually like on that path, even if they're not exactly there yet, but they're working towards it. There is like this kind of just, I'll help you, you help me, I help you, I help you, help me, and it just like ascends upwards much faster. I think a lot of men, there is this fear of just acknowledging like I either don't know what to do or I can't do it, or you don't realize how much your own competitive nature might be interfering with your collaborative side. Like I said, like the arena, it's like I'm going to kick you in the ass. I'm going to help you get back up afterwards. You don't see the help getting back up at the end. You're
Yeah.
convinced you're just going to kill me and then leave me dead on the floor, not even bury me or something like that. But like, yeah, we really forget how much it's like, yeah, this is going to hurt, but afterwards you're going to be better, and you just keep repeating.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, definitely fully support Angela Duckworth and her work. I use positive psychology a lot in my own coaching practice. And it's positive psychology in general has had a huge impact in my life, and her research into grit and positive, character strengths and leadership and all that has been phenomenal. That what was coming to mind for me is two things from my mentor, Dewey Freeman. And for those who don't know Dewey, he's a 50 plus year equine therapist here in the Front Range of Colorado. He's trained tens of thousands of therapists and coaches and practitioners from around the globe. He talking in the grit front, it's like you have to be willing to fight for your own life.
Mm.
And if you're not willing to fight for your own life, then you're never going to be able to develop grit. You're never going to be resilient, like, because you're the only one that can do that. nobody else can fight for what you need for you.
Yeah.
People can advocate for you. People can call you forward and hold you accountable and all that kind of stuff. But like, you've got to be willing to show up and do the work every day.
Hmm.
And then the second piece you mentioned, you mentioned fear, and he has this saying, he did a whole podcast on it, that like the greatest thing that men fear is being afraid. And that when the first time I heard him say that, I was just like, boom, like this, you just blew my brain open for a minute. As somebody who spent a lot of his life in situations where people would say that I had to be courageous. I can't tell you how many times I was just straight up terrified,
Yeah.
like driving 100 miles an hour, lights and sirens to a shooting or a robbery or something like that. And it's like, I am not okay, but this is what I get paid to do. And this is what I've been trained to do. And God willing, my training will keep me alive through whatever the situation is. But man, there was a lot of wiring of like, I am afraid of being afraid because of how much I have been afraid in my life, and how to work with that is a very interesting process and a long process, and unwiring or rewiring my nervous system around fear and courage, and what those things really mean in a day-to-day life that doesn't involve shootings and stabbings and robberies and break-ins and all the things that I used to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, yeah. The courage thing is a big one though too. I think men make the mistake of thinking that courage means you're not going to have fear. In
Yeah.
reality, courage is moving forward in the face of fear.
Yeah.
To act like it's not like he's unafraid. Like no, he's probably numb. He's probably like, if he doesn't look like he's afraid, he's just completely cut off his amygdala and he's just going forward. It's definitely there. It's
Yeah.
still going. Versus the guy who just like, and even then, I think there's a bit of a space between where men think they should be, where they push forward to and they come short, and then in that gap usually fills up very quickly with like shame and guilt.
Mm.
And it's like thinking like, oh, I should have been this courageous, but I only got up to here, which means I fell short. Therefore, I'm a coward. I'm like, no, you actually you did this much, even not all the way, but like you still pushed something forward. Like that in
Yeah.
itself was courageous. And if you can at least like push that forward, hold that ground, not fill that space with like shame and resentment towards yourself, and just appreciate what you did and how much more you can keep going if you can keep doing it, you turn this into a positive feedback loop, and you end up like having a better sense of recognizing what we refer to like where your edge is, and then being
Mm.
okay with stepping gently into your discomfort zone. Not it's like what I like to say, it's like there's like your discomfort zone, there's your comfort zone, your discomfort zone, and then there's like delusional confidence.
I
Like
like that delusional confidence. That's a
yeah, then
great.
there's like I could fight a lion. Like okay, take it a couple steps back. Like I could fight a cat. Like that's an easy win. What's the middle ground somewhere in there? Yeah, but recognizing like where your discomfort zone, and don't look at delusional confidence thinking I should be able to do that. Like that's a gradual step of slowly expanding that zone. And delusional confidence is when you're just going way too far out of over your skis, doing something you're not ready for, but then judging yourself for not being able to accomplish it afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I was thinking about my time in the SWAT team, and
Mm.
how important those that like push your edge just a little
Hmm.
bit, like go a little bit faster, draw a little bit faster, find your sights a little bit faster. Um, but how it's a lot of it comes down to like, you know, Greg Glassman, founder of CrossFit, way back in the early 2000s. God, that feels hard to say by itself. Back in the early 2000s, I was teaching a class off topic, but teaching a class about leadership to students a couple years ago. And one of the kids was like, back in the late 1900s. I was like, oh God, this hurts my feelings. But anyways, yeah. So like, in the SWAT teams, we have, there's this saying of like, you don't rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training. And
Yeah.
so it's like, as I think back on my first 6 months on the SWAT team, right? Like you go to SWAT school and you have to relearn how to walk, right? They're like,
Mhm.
here's 50 pounds of gear and body armor and a helmet and night vision goggles and a rifle. And here's a ram and here's a Halligan tool and an axe so that you can break down doors and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, and we want you to be able to walk super smooth while you've got a rifle in your hand so that you're on target if you need to be. your ability to like scan for threats and make tactical decisions, whether we're engaging a threat or we're retreating or we're using verbal commands or other tools or anything like that, how difficult just that was. And then it's like, man, we didn't even get into how do you go through a door? Like, how do you assess a room from the outside? Like, okay, that's a left to right swinging door. That's inward facing. That's, here's the hinges. Here's where the lock is. Based on this hallway, this is the kind of room that I can expect. Cool. Now, what am I going to do? Like, if my job is to go enter that room, okay, well, do I need to dive in and find a corner? Do I need to do a button hook? Do I need to plant my foot in the door frame and drive? Do I need to just enter the room and dominate the room? Do I need to put a flashbang in the room? It's like there's 8 bajillion different things that are running through your brain all at once. And if I hadn't spent 6 months just working on how do I walk with all this crap all over me and hanging off of me without rubbing it against the walls and giving away my position, like we didn't even get to opening the door. We're not even there yet. But if I hadn't put in all of those reps, right, I couldn't have gotten to how do I go through the door? How do I identify a threat? How do I engage with somebody? How do I put handcuffs on somebody once all of this has gone down? And it's like, and so as we think about pushing that edge, it's like, yeah, you're not going to show up in those situations you're going to be in the delusional confidence stage, not in the I can accomplish this, but it's going to be difficult stage because you haven't put the reps in.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't just, once a week at SWAT training. It was like, I'm walking around my house, rolling my feet, I'm going on runs with my gear to get more comfortable with it. And it's all the little things that you have to do leading up to the moment where you really need that training, where you really need that experience because you've been pushed outside your comfort zone in one way or another and expected to show up.
Yeah, and I think that kind of ties over to what we're speaking with a lot of men nowadays is that we've lost so many of like that in itself is you can see as a form of like male initiation in a way. It's like you're going to do something that sucks repeatedly for a while with people around you that hopefully you care about till you get good at it. And then when the day comes that we need you to be competent at this particular thing, you're going to be ready. But this is not the best analogy, but a tiny bit of an overlap. For me, it's been very funny. Since I moved, part of the reason for the move was because the cost of living in New York was getting ridiculous. The work-life balance wasn't great. So I have some close friends from childhood who I down here moved here with. And one of the things I wanted to start doing was getting back at the dating scene because I realized a big part of my lack of just comfort in like getting out there meeting women was mostly because I had no close friends. As soon as I got here, I was just like, I feel great. Holy crap, my bros are here. Holy shit, all these hot women. I'm going to start talking to everybody. And within like a month, I was already on dating apps and out meeting people and going on first dates. And I had one date recently that I remember we were sitting in a park just chatting on a bench, first time meeting each other. And at some point in the conversation, while she was talking to me, I realized like I have not checked in with myself for the last like hour and a half, 2 hours. Whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, every 5 seconds, oh my God, my hair looks weird. My shirt looks stupid. My gut's kind of flabby. Maybe I should have shaved a little bit differently. It's all good if you need a minute.
Okay. Liam, I'm on a call, remember? Where are you going? Lincoln. Okay, go to Lincoln's.
I'll be home by 11. Well, I have to come home at 11:50.
You don't need to come home at 11:50. Okay. You can go hang out all afternoon if you want. I'm sorry, Mike.
That's all good, man.
Summertime life. Summertime. And thankfully, Riverside's really good at editing.
Good. Might have to keep this in. This is really cute. So, yeah, so what I mean, saying, like, I basically didn't check in with her, with myself for like almost 2 hours. Whereas like 10 years prior, I would have just been like, my hair looks weird. I feel weird. My nose is big. My ears looked at my shirt is stupid. I could be stronger. I know my pecs aren't as big as I need to be. Like every little thing I could find as to why something's wrong with me, I know she sees. And then it starts showing in your body language, like something's off with him. And then all of a sudden she loses interest because she's a little nervous because she can't figure out what's going on in your head because you're nervous and anxious. But I thought about it and I was like, all the things I've done into my life up to this point has been just micro training of handling social anxiety or handling being in the presence of a woman I find attractive. And like without all that training up to that point, I wouldn't have got to this moment where I was like, The way that you can like turn a corner as a SWAT team with a ton of gear on and be like, I know exactly what to do. Because all those pain in the ass little those times my feet were killing me and I was sore and getting my ass kicked, like this led up to this moment where now like I'm able to handle this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the tie-in. I love the tie-in. It's like if we go back even to like the earlier part of the conversation of like I identified it so I could fix it, right? So it's like it is fixed because I identified it, and it's like no, like if you want to take all this like you did like into the dating scene is like, can you be safe? Can you be present? Can you remain grounded? Can you create a container as a man of like this is grounded masculinity. Like I'm not here because I need something from you. I'm here to offer myself. I'm here to receive your gifts in relationship, in contact, whatever that might be. And maybe our relationship, off Tinder or Hinge or whatever is not the one, but at least for this 2 hours, like, can I show up in the way that you as another human being deserves in relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Um, can I be present enough with you because I'm not judging myself that we can have a real conversation without all that other shit getting in the way. Because that's all that stuff does. Like you said, is like, it gets in the way of contact, right? And the ability for us to be in relationship with each other at any given moment. So I
Yeah.
love the analogy. I love segueing it right into dating.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
everything around us is just trying to make sense of our current experience based on our
mm-hmm.
past experience in every way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then deeper than that to the men's initiation thing is that we've like, especially with today's day and age of the dating scene, the mating crisis, the relationships blowing up, divorce rates so high. You look back far enough. For me, it was I started to look, when I got into men's work, I looked back into my own personal life and I started to see a pattern in relationships that I've had and ways I've behaved and how I've changed as a person over time. Like I was super ultra shy as a kid. Now I just literally can't shut up about it. I do podcasts now. All this stuff, but realizing there was no fault to my parents because they didn't know any better either. There's a missing gap in that male initiation ritualization of some sort that would have made any man who's struggling with staying conscious and understanding safety and being present with who they're with right now competent enough to be able to like say like, when were you supposed to learn this? Like, oh, you were supposed to just get like micro lessons through your childhood. It wasn't, again, not delusional confidence. Not like you're 10 years old, go ask out the hottest cheerleader on the varsity team. It's like, no, go just sit in the room with the girl until you get comfortable with it, and then maybe ask her name, and you feel a little nervous and get comfortable with it, and then see what her interests are, and you get a little nervous, and you just kind of just like chipping that 1% of just small practice that we're losing a lot of nowadays in today's day and age, especially with the last few generations of men who are having a harder time staying conscious because most of their attention is getting diverted to porn, weed, video games, substance abuse, just isolation. And they don't, like you said, they don't have the language to, you said it's in the very beginning, the language to describe what they're feeling and then figure out like what's missing. Like what's missing. I know you're familiar with Dewey. Dewey to me is like a freaking Obi-Wan Kenobi sitting on a mountainside. I might be interviewing him soon for the podcast, but I learned about him through Connor Beaton's work, Man Talks.
Yeah.
I did a couple of Connor's programs, and he actually was part of the program. That model of development, is the world okay? Am I okay? How much can I do? Can I do it well? That looking at that and asking, like, as a man, like, what lesson did you miss along the way, and how is it showing up in your life? And I like what I see sometimes with people is like, I heard this a lot, but I do massage therapy currently, and I'm hoping to just go full-time coaching eventually someday. But I would work with a lot of women, mostly married women, who are usually kind of pissed off with their husbands about something. Because the field just attracts women to it naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd hear this a lot of like, how is he this old and he still acts this way, or he doesn't understand this?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, 35 years old, download from the universe. I'm now more masculine.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Like we've lost, and I think, bringing Dewey's model into developmentally as not just individuals, but as a society, right? Like our history as a country here in the US or really in Western civilization in general has lost initiation. And I think it's lost it because it's been bastardized through military conflict and religion over the last 500 years. Like, this is not something that is just shown up overnight. And if we, even in our own history, right, like the last 170 years, we've got the Civil War, right, and all of the psychological, physical, emotional trauma that came from that, and they went back and they didn't know what to do with it. And then if we look at, and then we're starting here, like the late 1800s. If we look at psychological history, that's when we're really starting to look at like brain processes and what's happening in the body and all that kind of stuff. And then boom, World War I hits, and the whole world is thrown into chaos. And then the guys come back from that, and nobody knows what to do with the fog of war, right? And so then boom, we're thrust into the Great Depression, and so we're all just trying to survive. And then boom, we're in World War II, and everybody comes back from that traumatized and missing limbs and all those kinds of things. And that was where, in my opinion, things really kind of shifted, because those experiences were initiatory, but they weren't initiatory into healthy masculinity. They were initiatory into a system. They were initiatory into a process, a traumatic process. And then those guys came back, right? Like, and became the silent generation. They were the greatest generation, but they were also silent. They went to the VFW, they went to the DAV, they went to the American Legion, and they didn't talk about what happened. And then Korea happens, and the same thing happens when they come home. And then we look at Vietnam, and the guys that came back were actively shunned for everything that happened over there and their attempts to survive and manage everything. And so then it was like, well, masculinity is bad because masculinity did all of these things throughout the last couple hundred years in Western civilization. And so it's no wonder that we no longer have in the Western world like formal initiatory experiences, that we're not taking men or boys and helping them become healthy men, because we haven't had it modeled for us in a couple hundred years. It's been handled through the government and through war and all those kinds of things. And I think us coming to terms with that allows us to figure out, how do we really bring eldership back? How do we bring mentorship back? How do we give the gift of initiation to young men and boys, right? Like me and my good friend Robert Wunderlich, who's a men's coach as well. He's a BJJ black belt. Like my son's 8 or 7, his son's 8. And he and I are already talking about like, what are we going to do to initiate our boys into masculinity? Like, what are the processes? What are the adventures? What are the experiences, the talks that not just I need to have and not just he needs to have with his son and with my son, but like, who are the uncles that need to be in his life, that need to show up for him and show him different ways of being than I've got? Like Dewey's one and Traver's one. And so it's like, how do we really rally around these young men and show them that Andrew Tate's not the way, and pickup game is not the way, and that, being, on Reddit in the incel community all day, every day is not the way? How do we show them that relationship really is the key to this, the key to growth, the key to healing, the key to masculinity, the key to accountability in a healthy way, and calling forward, not calling out? I think there's a big shift right now towards trying to figure that out in a lot of spaces, in a lot of circles, but it's hard work, because the world is still like, fuck the patriarchy, but men have been harmed by the patriarchy too. And that's a controversial statement for a lot of the world to hear and to understand and accept. Certain men held a lot of the power, but most other men were victimized by the patriarchy in general. Yeah, I just said a whole lot of shit, so I'm just going to stop for a second. You can get me on the soapbox talking about, the history of masculinity, and I could talk all day.
I'm the same way. I actually had like a date recently with a girl, and I was just like, I think it was like 2 hours of me talking about the masculinity crisis, and she was about it, which is great. But yeah, talk to anybody about this shit and how it's so interesting how it all just intertwines, intersects on like a societal level and a cultural level, and like how it's happening with like modern day feminism, like the versions of it now versus the versions of it was back in the day, and how much like biology plays into it and just behavioralisms and things. And like, yeah, there's a million different things you could touch on. I'm curious though, what would you define if you had to do like a relatively quick definition of what healthy masculinity looks like or is? So it's like an ambiguous statement nowadays.
It is. Honestly, I think, if we look at Uncivilized, I think that, maybe this is just because it's, partially my movement and company, but like the ability to have primal and divine, right? Like the ability
Mm-hmm.
to go out in the world and chop wood and carry water and to protect and to provide to a certain extent with what is within your role in your specific relationship, but also the ability to be emotionally intelligent, to be emotionally literate, to be able to be in relationship, to be in contact, to create something in the world, right? Like I think we
Mm-hmm.
all have some sort of unique gift, and I think that we do the world a disservice if we don't figure out how to provide that to the world as well. Um, but I think that it also is a big piece for healthy, mature masculinity is an authentic expression of yourself. The
Mm.
ability to show up, the ability to be real, to be raw, to be connected. Um, I think so many of us have lost that capability, and there's fear. Like if we go back to Dewey's developmental model of, is the world okay? Am I okay? How much can I do? How well can I do? And who am I? Like there's a men's work developmental model in there too of like, are men okay? Can I be safe around men? Like, am I okay around men? What can I do with men? How much can I do with men? Who am I as a man as well? I think we can flip that too on into his developmental model as we talk about men's work. Um, but masculinity's got to be relational, and I think that's a huge piece that men are missing today and are afraid of because we don't know how to do it. Um, or we tell ourselves we don't know how to do it, but it's the most basic. It's the most basic human instinct in the world is to be relational and to share
Yeah.
struggle and to share hardship and to share wins and love and grace and all those things. It hasn't been modeled for us very well. So
Yeah.
I don't have a clear, concise like this is
That's
the
okay.
definition, but those are
Yeah.
the things that I really believe in that
Yeah.
lead to a healthy expression of masculinity.
Yeah. There's a bit of a, like the way I've coined it is like a prisoner's dilemma around vulnerability for men nowadays, where it's like,
Yeah,
I'm afraid to let my guard down in case you attack me, but you also want to let your guard down, but you think I'm going to attack you. And like, who's going to walk away with that? And being able to, as a man, like find somebody to try letting your guard down too, and then being okay with the outcome. And if it's not the right outcome you needed, you just part ways and find somebody else if you're willing to. But a lot of times, I think we take these stories. You hear the stories about men in relationship with women and how the women might be like, "Oh, we want you to open up more," and then he does, and then she breaks up with him, and then he's convinced, like, "Well, I can't open up to anyone ever again." And
yeah,
therefore also women are evil. Hold on, let me get on the Reddit forums and talk about how much they suck on the incel forums. This is fucking great. Not realizing that there really is an interconnection, like a multi-generational connection going on. I have like a buddy of mine whose wife is, she kind of gets a little snippy at him when he starts to get a bit more vulnerable and emotional. And it upsets him. But I had to make a point to say, like, well, if you look back at her history, she also really did not have healthy male role models around. She never really saw a man get emotional and like process his feelings in her presence. So, in a way, her subconscious is saying, "This is foreign. This is new. This is unknown. Get away from me." So my
yeah,
uncertainty, it's a little spooky. It's not her saying, "I don't love you because you have tears." It's her just not even understanding what's going on in her own head, and then it's kind of just like leapfrogs across the generations of like a man who can't open up means a woman who wants him to open up has never been around a man who's opened up before, and he opens up and then she runs away like screaming, and then
yeah,
go online, find an angry forum and post about it rather than
yeah.
understanding the deeper implications of he doesn't have the language yet that you do, and you don't have the experience that he needs you to have to be able to sit there with him, or maybe just like being present with it without you shutting down.
No, I like in order to create attachment, like we have to go through hard times to come out okay. The other side,
Mm-hmm.
come out okay on the other side, and for that we have to be willing to go through that hard time. Um,
Yeah.
no relationship's perfect. There's gonna be ebbs and flows. There's gonna be wins and losses and changes and growth and all that kind of stuff. But if you if you don't have the capacity, if you don't have the language, if you don't have all those things, that's fine. But you've got like if you really want your relationship to succeed, like you've got to be willing to do that work on yourself, right? Like my therapist recently was like, yeah, you've got your experience, you've got her experience, but then there's also the experience of the relationship, this third entity that we don't really talk about, that's in the middle between the two of you, and it's kind of like a child that you've been raising. And if we think about like how you interact with a child, right? Like we've been together 17 plus years, and our relational child is probably developmentally 8 or 9, right? And so like I can't talk to that relational developmental piece, who's 8 or 9, like a 35-year-old. And so like figuring out, that was one of the biggest things, is like for us, is like when I get activated, like I feel 4 or I feel 6 or I feel 13. And like that's the way that I'm showing up in conflict or in conversation. And same thing with her, and it's same with everybody. Like we've got those wounds that we go back to, and it's like I'm going to stomp my feet like a 4-year-old because I'm not getting my way. Especially if it's around ice cream, like I'm going to stomp my feet and walk away. But us being able to recognize that in relationship and be like, oh, you're not 38-year-old David right now, you're 4-year-old David. Like, how do we help you grow up so that you can meet me? Grow up, I mean that in the developmental psychological way, not like the shame, you're a 4-year-old, you should be better than this. It's like, how do we create the space for you to be 38 again in this conversation instead of 4?
Yeah.
And is that we need to take some deep breaths, or we need to step away from each other for a minute so that you can process and see where you're at. But like, that's, if we talk about real healthy masculinity, like the ability to be like, to not back down from a fight, but realize like sometimes there's, a tactical retreat that needs to take place so that you can come at this from a healthier way. Not everything in manhood needs to be like, I'm just going to drive my head against the wall until the wall breaks down. That's hard for me as a preacher or a former preacher. Like I love to break walls down or doors down, but that's where real like healthy, mature, fully developed masculinity comes in. It's not a like I'm perfect all the time, but it's I can recognize where I am and I can move within that space in order to be healthy and healing and relational. With all those other things I talked about earlier.
Yeah, being able to, I think this is just like it's creating this space that can keep yourself as well as the other person you're with or people you're with, like in it without it overwhelming you. Yeah, like that presence is a big one. It's funny when we talk to guys. I had a girlfriend years ago who ended up staying friends, and I told this to one of the guys I was working with, and he was just giving us some advice about this and that and the other thing. And long story short, ex-girlfriend, she inadvertently kind of like broke my ego by telling me way too many details about another guy she was sleeping with. After we broke up, we stayed friends. And at the time, I was like, I need to become the best lover in the world. Maybe I should get dick enhancement surgery. Maybe I should take whatever. Like I need to do something, watch more porn. I don't know what the secret technique is and all this shit. And I asked her, and I was like, okay, out of curiosity, like what was so good about like him in particular? Like what was the special technique? What was the angle? What was the lighting? The music play? What was it? And I never forgot that. She said, like it felt like no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get close enough to me. And I told this to a couple of guys, and they're just like, "The fuck does that mean? Like that's what? That's so not like doggy style? You're sure it's not like that's the secret? Like what? I don't understand." But really, getting guys to understand that, like, if your abs mattered, then no guy with the beer gut would have kids. If your dick size mattered, then by now we would be guys walking around with a third fucking leg. Like, if it really doesn't matter as much as you think it does in the context of relationship, and especially for women, it's a matter of understanding how many layers that safety can go down to beyond just like, okay, is your house safe? Yes, but is she safe with the person she's with in that house? That's a whole different type of safety. Are you emotionally contained? Like, does she feel safe that you could be there for her when she's having a hard time, but then also be able to like SWAT team and beat the shit out of a guy if he comes crashing through the door unexpectedly? Yeah. And then also when she has emotions, can you be there with her while she's going through that? And then when she feels those layers of safety going on, like, my God, the sex that comes out of that is just like a
Yeah.
whole other thing that guys don't really fully grasp. Is like when she feels comfortable with you, like, phew, just she will not be able to keep her hands off of you. Not just like, oh, your abs are so rock hard and your dick is 6 feet long and fucking, this is amazing. But yeah, like
Well,
understanding like it's about like this. There's a whole other element of psychological presence that you can cultivate, and not like, it's like rather than going to the gym twice a day, how about once a day go to the gym, and once a day do some meditation. Once a
yeah.
day read a book on, like, mindfulness or something like that. That will triple your output, what you're looking for, way quicker.
Absolutely. Well, I think like you brought the safety piece in too. It's like you have to think about from a woman's point of view, like they walk around in a world every single day where 50% of the population on the planet, on average, there's obviously some outliers. There's some pretty strong, tactical, capable women out there, but like on average, 50% of the world's population could kill them at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like recognizing like what that does to a woman's nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
like they have experiences, just how many of our women who have, are the women in our lives, not our women, but the women in our lives have been, you know, maybe they haven't been all been sexually assaulted or raped or anything like that, but the unhealthy look, the like, I got to hold my keys and my knuckles as I walk to my car, or I walk through the streets of downtown Denver or downtown Atlanta at night because you know I'm unsafe. And so
Mm-hmm.
like if you can figure out how to shed that layer and create, like you mentioned, like the emotional safety and the intimacy there, that's where things really start to blossom. That's where things
Mm-hmm.
really, you get to really start showing up, like my wife knows that when she's out or we're out and about, like I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will be as violent as I possibly need to be. And I've got a lot of skills and training to do that in order to protect her and protect our family. Like, so she gets to let that armor off a little bit, right? Like when she
Mm-hmm.
goes on her own, she's obviously still aware and protective of herself, but like when we're together, like that's my responsibility, because I've had all these experiences in doing it, and it's a responsibility I don't take lightly. It's not just that, yeah, I can, but it's like, no, I'm actively going to pay attention. I'm going to make sure that you don't have to carry the mental load when we're out of your physical safety because I've got you.
Yeah, I had a moment. It was about a year and a half ago with my last girlfriend, and we were walking somewhere, and we had the option to go like two paths. It was in New York City. It was like at night times where she lived. Like two different paths. One to go to this restaurant we like to go to. One path was like the long way on a busy street with lots of cars, and then path two was a short way, but it was between these buildings where some shady characters may or may not be there. And normally, when I was with her, we'd always walk the short path together. And then this one particular night, she starts like pulling me towards the long path. I'm like, wait, why are you going over there? And she's like, oh, this is how I usually go when I'm by myself. I'm like, oh, don't we usually go through here? She's like, oh, I don't go through there by myself, but if you want to go through there, I'll follow you. You're the man. And it was
Mm.
like, I feel like I could have looked up at the sky and seen like the clouds form into like a shape of my ancestors, of just like men, just like, we're proud of you. Good, you're doing, because she basically said like, I trust you to keep me safe if something happened. I can
Yeah.
remember like a handful of times a girl told me she loved me, but when she said to me like, you make me feel safe, like, fucking, oh my
Oh
god,
yeah.
like that was just a badge of honor that it felt so fucking good to hear, just down to my
Yeah, I
soul.
wish I could have like a Boy Scout sash and like put
Yeah,
that one on there.
like a little tag on there, my
Little
shirt.
merit badge, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, even times when we'd be walking together, and I remember there were times when she would like with women I was dating that like they'd be a little bit more like playful and outgoing when we're holding hands. But I could just feel myself like, is that guy a threat? Is that guy a threat? We good? Is the curb here? She's away from the curb. Okay, I'm good. And it just kind of
Yeah.
felt good to step into this feeling of like, okay, I've got you. I've got enough space to let you just play inside of it.
Mm.
Versus, I think when you get that role reversal, even in that, like I said, with the women in the world who could beat the crap, like even Ronda Rousey's like husband is gigantic, from what I
Yeah.
understand. So like even in that case, but looking at that, I think a lot of guys, this is what the incel movement, the angry red pill and whatnot. So they only want, was it Chad and Tyrone? They only want like the ripped 6-pack, bulky, beefy. Like you have to ask what that guy represents, not just the
Mm.
abs, not just the. It's like he represents discipline. He's strong. He's like has probably a certain degree of confidence if he's willing to walk up to you. He's probably gone through his own like that is everything that's entailed in his appearance. But if you can demonstrate that as a man, in other angles and other ways, and showing like, oh, I actually have a clean apartment. I actually make my bed. I actually took a shower today. Like I actually thought about a conversation. I actually planned more than 2 steps ahead in this date. Holy shit, you're the sexiest guy around because you're actually able to, you're demonstrating these little attributes and qualities that maybe you can't give a six pack, but there's so many other things you could look at. But it's often tossed to the side and afraid for these superficial things we can easily grasp onto.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, it's interesting. That's like the perception from that community is like you got to have a six pack and six figures and 6 feet tall, right?
Yeah, the
But
sixes.
like,
Yep.
it was interesting a couple months ago. Like, I don't know why. Maybe my Facebook algorithm just knew I was feeling insecure. Like I'm a big dude. You know, I'm 5'10", 250-ish. I lift heavy all the time. You do all the things, but there's that like, man, I really wish that like every man has it, right? Like I really wish I had six pack. I really wish I could, you know, I wish I could deadlift 700 instead of 600.
Uh-huh.
That those kinds of things. But so Facebook knew as always, but it was like showed like 8 or 9 pictures of like male body types, you know, from like super skinny to Ronnie Coleman, right? And it was like, and I just couldn't help myself but go into the comments. And it was like the vast majority of the comments were like, I want like a little bit of love to hold on to, right? Like the guy with the six pack, I'm probably never going to see because he's at the gym all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were thousands of comments from women. And it was like, that's an eye opening experience of this is, you know, all of that stuff from like internally is all just projections. You know, it's
Yep.
like, this is what I expect women to want. But in reality, they want safe, they want vulnerable, they want emotionally mature, they want all the other things that we've talked about in the last hour. And that's where we have to do the work. We don't have to just go bench press more. Like I want you to bench press. I want to bench press your heavy fucking emotions, man. Like, and get those off your chest when they're stuck. Not just the 315, you know, that's resting on your chest, waiting for your spotter to come get off. But that, you know, that was a really eye opening moment for me. And I've been in this work for a long time and, you know, wrestled with body dysmorphia and all those kinds of things from my time in the military and law enforcement. And like, you're supposed to look this way. And, you know, I think learning how to accept ourselves and love ourselves is going to change, is how we move that forward, how we move that needle forward, even on the days that it's hard and we don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear the thunder is raging right now where I am.
Perfect timing, maybe.
Yeah. That was a big one for me, and I think I don't know if enough guys get this experience growing up, but I think there's a certain part of the problem. I think is men and women maybe too, but men looking at the 10 out of 10s and being like, well, that would make me happy. There's way more to it than just physical appearance that goes on to that thing. Not to mention, like, you'd rather be with the person that's interested in you rather than, you know, the one you're chasing to be interested in. But yeah, I've had that experience. But I was super insecure in high school. I was skinny, scrawny. I had like no muscle mass. Didn't like myself, hated myself. Finally had one day where like I had an ex-girlfriend like break my ego by telling me about like, oh my God, this sexual Superman. I was like, I'm going to the gym every day now. Holy shit. I'm getting jacked. And even that really didn't fix that other part of it, which was like, you know, like your emotional self-awareness and your this and that and all that stuff. But it was incredible that when I got to a point where I was like, I'm confident in myself, I'm comfortable in my own skin, I know where I'm going, like Robert Glover, Dr. Glover, and all that stuff. And that when I was in certain spaces, that women would just like flock to me. And I was like, where the hell were you 5 years ago? Like I was like, I haven't changed. I got bigger, sure, muscles, yeah, but like, why are you talking to me now? Not realizing like, no, you got confident. You feel comfortable with yourself. You're okay with being in their presence and like you have option. And then that just had like this trickle effect and then post college kind of losing my focus, my confidence a bit. Some things happened. And then like women just kind of ran away again. And then you see like how it just kind of, I won't say it oscillates, but it all really has to do with you. And I wonder, like with the Man Uncivilized stuff, do you get a lot of guys or handfuls of guys who are like post red pill, MGTOW, incel who are like, I don't want to do it anymore. You guys have something. What is it? What am I missing? Or is it something in between where guys are just kind of lost? Like what kind of guys do you got coming in?
We have a lot of recovering nice guys. You know, the Kill the Nice Guy program is one of our flagship programs. So we have a lot of that. We have had, you know, guys that are coming from the men going their own way
Mm.
kind of lifestyle. And, I think a lot about like in that space, like is that you cannot like hate yourself enough to move into self-love. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not humanly possible, right? Like that behavior pattern only leads to more self-loathing. And
Yeah.
so it's like radical self-acceptance, whether you're, the nice guy or the sensitive new age guy, or you're the Marlboro man. Like it has to come in through self-love. It has to come through acceptance of where you're at in your journey. Is like, because we project onto like, well, I'm bad, or I have all this shame and guilt because this is where I'm at and I'm not here, and I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 50s and I should be here, right? Like we've had
Mhm.
guys come to our initiation retreat that are in their 60s and 70s that are still trying to figure out manhood, that are still trying to figure out relationships. It's like, um, doesn't mean that we're all broken and we're all in need of this big initiatory experience, but we're in need of a place to be safe, a place to be held, a place to be witnessed. And that's kind of what we offer. Is, I can't guarantee that living an uncivilized lifestyle is going to fix all of your issues, but I can tell you that it's going to help. It's going to help you on your path.
Mhm.
I can say when you've got an ethos to follow and a standard to judge your own behavior and those around you, it helps. And most of us don't have that. If we go back to Dewey again, I always go back to Dewey because he's a mentor. But like you've seen the bottom half of the developmental model. He and I have been working on the top half of the developmental model from 23 to death over the last couple of
Mm.
years. And the first question in the top half of the developmental model is, who am I really? And most humans on the planet have not had the opportunity to answer that question. And that's where so much of our suffering comes from as men, is like, I'm trying to live out these ideals, these values that have been given to me by church or my parents or school or the government and those kinds
Mm.
of things. And it's like, there aren't a lot of safe places in the world to ask that question and
Yeah.
to be able to fall apart enough to come up with the answers of, that stuff isn't me and this stuff is, and I'm going to take this stuff forward in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we offer. That's kind of what we do around here, is start to answer some of those questions of, who am I really? Who am I as a man? How do I do this in relationship? How do I make my partner feel safe? Whether, they're, we have gay men, we have trans men that are part of the organization, part of the movement. It's like, if you're trying to become a better man, like, we're here for you, and we're here for
Yeah.
the ride that you're going to go on.
This is awesome. Yeah. I have a feeling my internet's going to explode in like the next 10 minutes. I
Yeah,
don't know
man.
for sure. So
I
this might be a good
understand.
place to cut it off, but I'd love to do this again sometime. And hopefully I was just going to think of like, finding a place where you can, like let yourself down, or you could put yourself in a box for 49 days and just go into complete silence and just see if you find your answers there.
Not all of us
Not all of
advocate for
us need to do
49 days of darkness.
that.
Uh, a couple hours in darkness can be beneficial. I don't know about 49 days, but if you're down for it, we're down to support you.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for your time. Where can we find your work, your content?
Yeah, if you go to www.manuncivilized.com, all of our courses, the information about the nation, you can find a local men's group. We've got men's groups around the planet that are free to join, free to attend. If you're looking for Instagram content at uncivilized_Dave and at uncivilized_official. Be happy to connect with you, happy to chat, happy to hear your story, happy to support you in any way I can. And I look forward to coming back on again, Mike. It was a great time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.